It would probably help if I added myself to the stage, but I know no one was expecting me to go live right now, so I'll wait a bit to see if anybody comes in. Oh, I think I have my first taker. Hi, everybody. I had a little bit of a busy afternoon preparing a baby shower for a work colleague who has been waiting for her little ball of sunshine for a long time. So it's a really big deal. So I baked a rainbow cake because anyone who knows anything about pregnancy and rainbow babies will totally understand the vibe. I have two rainbow babies, and basically, a rainbow baby is a baby that comes after a storm, usually after a miscarriage. Hey, Scott. I have one person in here, a good friend. Nice to see you. Yeah, the baby shower was a hit. It was really exciting. I got massive big balloons and I baked a rainbow cake and made a big fuss over our beautiful colleague who is finally having the baby that she's wanted for so long. So that was definitely a mood lifter. And I just had a really lovely chat with Ash, and we were talking about our plans for a video on Sunday, Australia time. We are going to discuss the interview between the police and Kathy Allen. And Scott, I've seen your notes, so we'll definitely discuss some of your observations and we'll get questions. Ash is going to come live with me on Sunday. I'm so excited. Ash is one of my dearest friends, as everyone knows, someone who gets me and understands how my mind works, which is wonderful. But lovely to see you here too, Scott, because I think you're another person who gets me and understands how my mind works, even though we don't agree about certain aspects. I think there's a lot of mutual respect there, so I really appreciate that. Anyone else who's lurking, come on in. I know it's not the best time for our friends in the Northern Hemisphere. Do you know how many times I have to double check whether it's Northern or Southern Hemisphere? I'm like directionally challenged. I will definitely own that. I'm the person who has to turn the map around, you know. Luckily these days we don't need to do that. Anyway, I thought I'd have a quick chat before we get into the Hoosier Harvestore stuff because I know no one's expecting me to be live, and so I only have 3 people watching, which is the lowest count we've had for a while. Oh, hey, Donald. Oh, lovely to see you, and always lovely to see your beautiful puppy dog. Good to see you. Now, this morning, Australia time or lunchtime Australia time, we did uh, a live on this, and it went a bit awry. Definitely not the best live that we've done on the channel, and so I think it's really ready to do a redo of it because I think we kind of got sidetracked and emotions were high, and I think that's totally fine. As you all know, I am not an emotionally phobic person, and I do have big emotions. I have big emotions about this case, but I have big emotions just in general, and some big emotions from this case and from some of the horrendous bullying and targeting and smearing and dismissiveness in the community. My good friend Adrienne has talked about, the misogyny in the community and the bullying, and I've certainly been victim to that as well. And not just a few name calling or people just disagreeing, but people being really harsh and really unfair. And it took a little bit of a pep talk with a few of my friends. Scott, you were one of them, that also ChatGPT and Ash, people who I think understand maybe a little bit more about how my mind works and why I am who I am. Oh, Dave's here. Lovely to see you, Dave. So I want to do a refresh because we lost track of what we're here for earlier today, and that is to discuss the Delphi case, to get justice for Abby and Libby, and to get justice for Rick as well, the people who believe he is an innocent man, as I still strongly do. So we're going to get back into the Hoosier Harvestore footage. One thing I think you can trust now from Daisy Asks is, well, actually 2 things. No, 3 things you can trust, maybe more, from Daisy Asks and the channel is that I myself am always committed to being now I can't think of one of them. No, I can. It's just I'm trying to word them accurate. Okay, first thing you can always count on from Daisy Asks is kindness. And kindness doesn't mean not setting boundaries. So I will set boundaries if I do believe people are being unfair. But Also, what you can expect is fairness. And again, I hope that I've shown that. You can expect accountability, and you can expect debate and discussion and critical thinking. And you could expect lots of fact checking, lots of it. So, guess what? I've been doing more of that since we went offline earlier, and I've been looking at some stuff about Hoosier Harvestore. So, we will get back into the camera issue that kind of blew things up this morning, because I think there is more to that discussion, but I want to have that discussion where we stick strongly to evidence and oh, thank you, Dave. I love when Dave comes in. Dave is just the most warmest, loveliest soul. Check his channel out. He is a lovely guy, honestly. And Dave, you were in my chats when nobody else was right back at the beginning, and I really, really, really have appreciated that support. So love it. Thank you so much. So that's Owl on the Prowl. For anyone who doesn't know Dave, please definitely look out his channel. He does great true crime stuff as well. So I'll drop the link actually in the comments, because I don't think I've made you a mod yet, Owl, Dave, but I should. I will make you a mod for sure. I'm not on YouTube at the moment. I'm on StreamYard, so I will do that next time I see you in chat. But I will also drop a link to your channel as well on the community page or on the comments here. So we're going to get into the Hoosier Harvestore. I think we got this. Oh, that was the other thing I was going to say. Goodness, guys, I'm all over the place. You can trust novel ideas from Daisy Asks, because I think outside the box. And this is probably why at first a lot of my ideas get dismissed, because I don't follow, I guess, the crowd. And I don't try to be a rebel, but what I do try to do is use my capacity to integrate information to come up with cohesive, credible, plausible ideas around the Delphi case and around lots of other things too, but I'm only here to talk about the Delphi case at the moment. And that's exactly what I've done. So we know the cold shock theory, and again, I say it every time, I will die on that hill, and anyone who doesn't feel like it makes sense, I'm always happy to talk further about that. Nana G is very, very welcome on our channel, and she probably will do it as long as we don't put her on video, but that's fine. By the way, just to make some people laugh in the chat, Scott, you will understand this. She looked at our article about EMF, PSM. I'm going to laugh again. PMSM. And I can't remember the exact quote, but she basically was like, what? Like, she's like, I don't even need to read this. Like, this has got nothing to do with lithium ion batteries. So thanks for that, Nana G. Nana G has proven that I am not completely insane when I look at that article and go, I don't get it. It's not relevant. It's not relevant. Sorry, it's not. So the cold shock theory has not been debunked. If you have read that it's debunked anywhere, please come and ask me. I'm happy to give you the explainer and explain why it lives to fight another day, and it will continue to. Oh, thank you, Dave. Thank you so much. So I am sometimes a bit feisty nowadays, because I think I've earned the privilege to be a bit feisty, because feistiness isn't unkind. Feistiness is boundaries, and it's sticking up for yourself and saying, actually, like, that's not fair. It's not fair to critique my theory with information that isn't evidence. Oh, Anik, thank you so much for joining, and your message on the community page really was so welcome. Thank you so much. You made my day by replying to a vulnerable message, so appreciate you. Anyway, right, let's get into Hoosier Harvestore, because what I suggested yesterday, I think, is good, and I'm going to own that. I think it is a good theory, and let's talk about it. But let's also talk about the cameras. And Scott, you said you've got a photo of the cameras. Please let us know. I just went and found a video. There's lots of videos I know online where people drive past the Hoosier Hoosier Harvestore, and I think there's a news reporter that has, footage in front of it. But I actually found someone who I believe must think Frick is guilty, because they had said that it was the road that Rick drove on, but nonetheless had amazing footage where they actually walked up close to the Hoosier Harvestore. So, okay, Scott, I will check the folder. Scott is so generous with his resources. He has given me a whole folder full of digital stuff and Bridge Guy stuff. And yeah, we really were so privileged to have that photo, the enhanced photo yesterday that we used to understand the car. We'll go over that again today. We're going to go over what AI said about which car was the most plausible car that mirrored the Hoosier Harvestore footage. So we're going to look at that. I've still got that slide to show. We're going to talk about Betsy Blair again and what she said and how she saw the Hoosier Harvestore video. We're going to talk about whether the Hoosier Harvestore does have multiple cameras. I hadn't planned to do that, but it obviously came up earlier, and it is something we've talked about, or I've talked about, I think, before, maybe not on the channel. Yeah. You're not sure why we call it Hoosier Harvestore, do you mean, Scott? Oh, I should be putting the comments on the screen so everyone can see if they're on the replay, because I guess a lot of people will probably watch the replay because it's a pretty weird time for a lot of people. One thing I wanted to also do, I did this morning, but of course that live I have decided to kind of just privatize, because it really wasn't as productive a discussion as I'd hoped. I think it's now called the Delphi U Store, Scott. I think back in the day it was called the Hoosier Harvestore. I think Hoosier Harvestore now, if you look in Google Maps, I actually think it takes you to a different location sometimes. So I don't know if that's because Hoosier Harvestore exists somewhere else or it doesn't exist. But yes, it is definitely called the Delphi U Store now. Now I'm just going to caffeinate and sugar up. Today it's just raw Amy G. I'm like not planned. I've had fun at the baby shower, and I'm just sitting here going, I got an hour to spare. Then I'm going to go to bed and get up and do a long therapy day tomorrow. Because yes, it is exactly the same building. And so if the building now doesn't have a camera on the front, it didn't have a camera on the front in 2017 either. Now, like, we'll get to the camera issue later. Let's get to the meat and bones of what I was meant to be talking about this morning, because this is the novel part, and then we'll get to the camera. Yeah. Oh, hello there, new social imaginaries. Another one of my faves has come in. I love that. I love that person. Awesome. Great to see some of my faves in here. You're the mod in here today, so you need to keep an eye on this Scott, because he's a naughty guy. No, only joking. He's not. He's my good friend. Okay, so let's Cryptex is here too. Hey Cryptex, another good friend of the channel. So let's get into the Hoosier Harvestore. Yeah. So let me pull up the slides. I didn't prepare myself today. Like I said, we were having a good old chat and playing fun games at the baby shower. We were sniffing chocolates melted on nappies. That was my idea. It's a good baby shower game. And measuring bellies and things like that. So just bear with me. I'll just grab the link and we'll have a look at some of these pictures together. So for those of you who didn't watch part 1 of the Hoosier Harvestore discussion, that is up on the channel, and definitely check it out, because that's where we kind of introduce the idea, and we're following it up now. Oh, okay, that was what I was going to say. So before we go into the Hoosier Harvestore video, I wanted to clarify, on this channel we will always fact check, and if we get things wrong, we'll always come back and say, no baby for me. No baby for me. I've got my 2 babies. No, it's actually a colleague. She is expecting her first baby. It's been a really long journey, an IVF baby, a rainbow baby, if people know what that means. And just a really, really sweet colleague who really deserved a big celebration. So we did that today. I baked a rainbow marble cake, and we got balloons, and amazing vouchers for her, and we played some fun games. So yeah, she was so deserved, so deserved. She's such a sweetheart, and we can't wait for her little baby boy to come into the world. What an exciting time, right? Like I remember when I was pregnant, and particularly towards the end of the pregnancy, when you're like just about to get the little bubba. Yeah, it's so cool. I can't wait to cuddle him. He's going to be cute. Okay, so anyone who's watching me today is like, what is she talking about? But we will get to Delphi in a second. Do you know how many times I've been asked if I'm pregnant when I'm not pregnant? One time was before I'd even had kids, and I was getting on a plane. I was actually on holiday in India, so I was at Delhi airport, and the guy said to me, "Do you need a bigger seat?" And I was like I've always been like this, so I'm quite slim. Like I've always been slim, but where I hold all my weight is my belly, and as soon as I eat, my belly loves to expand. So that was interesting. And the second time, this was a funny story. So in January 2023. I came back from being on leave, and I was going through the Red Devil chemo, pretty awful. I decided I didn't want my clients to get too worried, and so I was wearing a wig, and I walk in, and one of my clients' mums says, "You are glowing, Amy. Are you expecting?" And I'm like, "No, I have the chemo glow." I didn't say that to her, but that is exactly what I was thinking. I'm like, I'm glowing, but like my body is being literally like all the cells in my body are being killed by red devil chemo. And poor lady though, because I think she recognized afterwards, and then she sent me an email, and then obviously like I couldn't wear a wig for the entire time. It was summer in Australia, and the wig was just like, oh, it was just killing me. So I started wearing the little turbans and stuff. And she's like, "I'm so sorry." I'm like, "It's fine." It was actually a real compliment. I mean, if I'm glowing when I have chemo, I mean, that's a good sign, isn't it? Interesting, actually. Chemo was not good for my hair, but it wasn't bad for my skin. So there you go. Chemo. Oh no, there's the third time. There's the third time I got asked if I was pregnant. My best friend was so pissed off here because it was my first chemo. And because of COVID and stuff, you couldn't usually have people, but the first one you could. And so I'm laying on the bed in the hospital ward. My mum didn't come because she was just too anxious and sad. My sister's not great with hospitals. We had the kids. And so my best friend came, and I'm going to cry thinking about this because it's so not because of what was said about pregnancy, but because it was a big day, and it was literally like, gosh, 3 years ago now, nearly. And I'm laying on the bed, and they're getting you all ready for the chemo. And she says, "Can I just check?" The nurse comes in. She's like, "Can I just check? Are you pregnant?" And I'm like, "No. Why would I be pregnant? Because like I'm about to start chemo. Like I wouldn't come to chemo. I mean, you can have chemo if you're pregnant if you have to, but it's like, no." And my best friend was just like, oh, she was getting so angry. And I wasn't getting angry. I just said, no, I just ate too much food at Christmas because it was like January the 4th or something. So anyway, I wasn't particularly fazed by it. I am just someone who, when I eat or drink, my belly bloats. So I perpetually have a Coca-Cola, chocolate, Macca's baby, and it is what it is. So yeah, but my best friend, really, she was gonna like get into fisticuffs with this lady, I think. Anyway, so if I were pregnant, people wouldn't know because I clearly always look like I'm pregnant. Anyway, okay, funny stories. Yes, Dave, you should never ask a woman, apparently. I don't mind. Honestly, I don't think I've ever been offended by it. Yeah, it's interesting because even when I was pregnant, I didn't look pregnant because the rest of my body, like I said, is super slim. I barely gained any weight during my pregnancies. I had gestational diabetes in my first, and I remember going to my last antenatal appointment, and the obstetrician had a student with him, and he says to the student, "Amy's not normal. Like most people put on weight during their pregnancy, and I didn't. So I'm just a tummy with stick legs and arms." So anyway, it's probably my fault because like I drink too much of this, right? So of course I have a big tummy because that's where you store all of your sugar fat. But I wouldn't be without my Coca-Cola. I had to when I had gestational diabetes. Anyway, you guys don't need to hear me ramble on and on. Let's talk about the Hoosier Harvestore because that's what you came here for, not to hear my stories. I think I've had too much sugar today. Okay, so let's put it on the screen. Here we go. Hoosier Harvestore Mirage. So trying to come up with a new trademark. But I don't know if this one's going to stick, like the lost tip narrative and the cold shock theory, but we'll see how we go. Anarch is saying, I had a fun time yesterday, Eve. I decided to have fun with 2 members of the troll farm in my channel comments. Oh dear. Okay. I actually don't get hassled by the first lot of trolls, the ones who believe Rick is guilty. I don't get hassled by them too much. I've had a few maybe on Twitter, but most of the time they don't seem to bother with me because they realize they don't need to, because the people who believe Rick Allen is innocent troll me enough. Maybe. I don't know, but yeah. Cryptex is saying, the other time I met a friend I've not seen since years, told her pregnant belly. Oh, and told her, oh my God, congrats. And she wasn't pregnant. Oh, I think we've all had those moments, Cryptex. Don't worry. We've all had them. I've certainly had those moments too where, I've assumed someone's pregnant and maybe even made a slight comment and then realized and backed off very quickly. Yeah, it happens. It happens. Look, after Christmas, I guarantee you I will look more pregnant. Oh, Low Light Recovery, I haven't seen you for ages. So good to see you. Thank you for joining. Yeah, I haven't seen you in a while. I think I saw a few of your recent Twitter posts. So good to see that you're back again. Awesome. And thank you so much for supporting my channel. I really, really appreciate it. Okay, we're 22 minutes in and I have not spoken about Delphi, but there was one more thing that I wanted to say. So on the live stream, the first Hoosier Harvestore live stream, we were talking then about some of the Odinism stuff. And look, we can talk more about that. It's not an area of expertise for me. It's not an area that I've deep dived into too much yet. But we were talking about some of the characters listed in the Frank's memo. And Shibi was saying that they all had, or they had like criminal histories. And I went back and I looked at the Frank's memo and I'm not 100% sure that that was the case. And I did say that in the video, but I wanted to clarify again for everybody that I don't want to speculate on whether people have criminal histories or not without solid proof. So I'm going to look into those things and just wanted to say we'll always continue to fact check if we're getting things wrong. And so, yeah. When I fact check that, I'm not sure that everybody in the third party kind of group in the Frank's memo does have a criminal history. I know they do have histories of being seen as having maybe aggressive or violent traits or antisocial traits, I suppose. But again, I'm not here to diagnose anyone. I'm not here to suggest that somebody does or doesn't have a particular conviction, unless they do, unless there's some sort of stated fact. So Scott's saying all you could find on the Holder was a court case with him and his wife. Yeah, so that's what I wanted to really clarify. I know that a few of them do have criminal histories, but yes, I couldn't see anything documented as far as I could see with some of the others. And so I really don't want to speculate on who has a criminal history. Yeah. And as we said last chat as well, we're not speculating on whether people meet criteria for disorders or particular conditions. So just wanted to raise that before we go into Hoosier Harvestore. Okay. So okay, so you know the disclaimer. Oh, I'm saying all of this and I haven't even got it up on the screen. I'm really disorganized today. I'm sorry. It says I'm sharing the screen. Oh, I just haven't shared it on here. I'm struggling with StreamYard today. Donald's saying that there are some hidden cases. Yeah, like I would love to find out more because I think it'd be useful to know. I guess also though, yeah, I guess we haven't really looked into that angle too much. Like I know I was making a few speculative statements when we talked about the Odinist stuff the other day in passing, but I think most of you know that I feel like I love to deep dive things before I make too much of a statement on anything. So the Odinism angle is not something that I've deep dived in any depth other than to say, oh yeah, that looks suspicious, or there is some sort of reasonable, or what's not reasonable? I always get these wrong. Or just probable cause, I suppose. It seems like there potentially could be, but like I said, let's not dive into that. Let's stay with Hoosier Harvestore for now, because that's what I kind of want to keep my eye on at the moment. Now, the Hoosier Harvestore footage is something that I raised right back at the beginning when I first got really interested in advocating for Rick Allen. It was the thing that kind of sold me on his innocence once and for all. I already believed there was a lot of, I guess, doubt. But when I looked at this Hoosier Harvestore footage, initially, if it had been verified and if I thought that it was actually really believable, it would have been something that definitely gave me doubt. I thought, does it match the timeline? And initially I thought it might match the timeline of Bridge Guy. And so I was concerned about it. However, when you look at the pictures in with a closer kind of eye, I definitely do feel that there are some odd things going on. So main oddity is that the pictures of the suspect vehicle do look blurrier than the pictures of the other vehicles taken by the same camera. Now, we all know that Mullins does mention going back to the video in 2022 and looking at it. I think that is when those images are extracted. Now, again, also wanted to say, I went back and confirmed Mullins does not say in any of his testimony that he went back to the Hoosier Harvestore in 2022 to get the footage. He went back to the video. I think Nick, in his closing statement, does misspeak a little bit, and it can kind of sound as though he's saying that that Mullins went back to the store, but he didn't go back to the store as far as I could see in Mullins' own testimony. So this is supposedly based on the video from the FBI that was verified and time-checked. So again, also something I mentioned in the first video that I know Shibi was a bit dubious about, but I truly believe that the time correction is indeed correct. The reason is that it matches Betsy Blair's timing, it matches her Fitbit, it matches Kelsey German's timing, it matches Libby's phone and the timing of when the girls were dropped off. So I have no reason to believe that there's any oddities with the timing of the Hoosier Harvestore. I think it's just one of those things where, the camera is set to the wrong time. So, yes, Scott. Yes, even the worst are not useless all the time. I agree, right? So anyway, we've got the disclaimer on the screen, so I won't have to keep saying allegedly, in my opinion. This is all my opinion. I am not an expert in this area, and I'm not speaking as an expert. I'm not speaking as a psychologist. All of that. I love that, Scott. Broken clocks and all that. Exactly right. Broken clocks are right at least one time, two times in 24 hours, right? My brain is really not working this evening, guys. This is probably not the best live. Might be another one that we have to privatize after the point. Okay. I think just lots of energy and emotions today. So you probably can tell that I'm a little bit unhinged today. But let's just talk about this. And then what I might do is just crop the relevant parts for our replay people. Okay, so this is, thank you, Scott. I am smiling again, thanks to a few of you guys who've been really supportive, and also my beautiful friend Ash, and being able to be around her today has made a difference, but definitely still got some wobbles being back on alive again after feeling a little bit traumatized, I suppose. But yeah, anyway. So, Betsy Blair. So anyone new to this knows that this came out, or not anyone new to this, anyone new to this may not know this, but people who have been following along and looking at the new documents that are dropping have seen this. So Betsy Blair has basically, in 2019, of course 2019, because where's the 2017 interview? No, we only worry about this 2 years later because it's not like we're solving a serious crime or anything, right, Mr. Liggett? Oh, my goodness. So Tony Liggett has taken this narrative, and we've only got a part of it. I wish we could have the rest, but anyway. Betsy said that she'd been shown the video from the Hoosier Harvestore by someone from ISP. She said that it was hard to see the vehicles on the video. She thought it might help her looking at the still pictures. Is this the rationale for only showing the stills? Who knows? That could be zoomed in on. Well, Betsy, like when we zoom in on those stills, we can't see anything. Anyway, I suppose it's hard to see. The cars would go past really quickly. So I'm not trying to say that Betsy is misspeaking in her statement here. As you know, I don't actually think that any of the witnesses are lying or trying to trick anyone or involved in any way. So I've held that stance very much from the beginning. I know a lot of people have doubts about Betsy Blair. The only thing that I have a doubt about is her memory, just like every other witness, because if anyone looks at eyewitness memory research, they will find that eyewitnesses do not have the best memory recall, nor would you or I. I think this is a point that I always raise on this channel, and that is perspective taking. Because if you imagine yourself sitting in, not sitting in, I was reading Kelly's, hi Kelly, lovely to see you. I was reading your comment and then I was like sitting in a car. That was silly. Yes, the car drawing, wild, right? But I don't actually blame Betsy Blair for that. I haven't been drinking, by the way. I sound like I'm hyper. It's just the sugar, right? Lots of sugar. And I'm still drinking my Coca-Cola here. Betsy Blair. I don't drink, by the way, guys. I'm wild enough with just my Coca-Cola. So goodness knows what I would be like if I was drinking. But yeah, Betsy Blair's, the wild drawing, I think it's because she's drawing that old boxy style car, right? Like the Comet. Now, that car, I believe exists, but I also believe another car exists. And I was explaining this earlier, and I think that this often gets ignored because people want to believe the earlier timeline for Rick Allen. And I don't believe the 12 to 1 o'clock timeline or whatever that is, because I don't believe we need to. So whenever I come up with a theory or a hypothesis around this case, I tend to look for something that matches the facts best, and I tend to move away from conspiracy unless it's really whacking us in the face, right? And so I hope that that's what you've come to expect from this channel. I will always go with the simplest explanation if there is a simpler explanation. But if that simpler explanation does not make sense according to facts and research, then I will not go with it. So the simplest explanation to me of why Betsy Blair sees a comet plus a car that looks like David McCain's car is that she sees two cars. It was the exact thing that I talk about when I talk about the tale of the two cars. So if you watch my video that is about the tale of the two cars, you'll see that that's something that I've raised before. I've said that I believe that there were two cars, one parked at the CPS and one parked on the road between the CPS and the curve, which is what Brad Heath spoke about. He drove past that and he saw that car twice, at 8:45-ish and at 2:07. I'm going to turn the camera off, by the way, guys, because I'm distracting myself with my own arms moving around. So give me 1 second. Okay, so I think I'll be more serious now. Let's just break this down. I'm going to take a breath and just break it down because I'm a bit hyped up for my baby shower. What's cooking, Anarch? I'd love to know what you're having to eat tonight. I haven't eaten anything sensible today, just cake, Coke, and Coca-Cola, and I had one Vietnamese roll earlier. So anyway, so I'm all over the place today. Thank you for bearing with me, the 12 people who are watching. This video is going awry. I will make my main points and then I may just make a new video about this again when I'm a bit more coherent. Bacon sandwich. Oh, yum. You're making my mouth water. So today's just more of a chatty one, guys, and I'll do a second video where I'm a bit more organized. Today's just been a really big day and it's 10:20 and I'm Yeah, it's just been a big day. Lots of different things going on. So let me explain why I think there are two cars again, just quickly, because Brad Heath sees a car, an old style car, parked between the CPS and the curve in the road, and he sees that at 8:45 and again at around 2:07. He says he doesn't see a car parked at the CPS. He only sees that old car. Now, Betsy Blair drives past that CPS 4 times. Okay. And she talks about only seeing the car backed in that looks like a comet on the last drive at 2:18. Now, it doesn't add up completely to me, because now we've also got Betsy Blair saying that the vehicle that she picked from the video was most similar to David McCain. Now, my understanding is that David McCain drives a Honda Civic. Now, I could be wrong about this. I've said that the only way I found out what David McCain drives was through All Eyes website on her timeline. And I do tend to trust that. All Eyes has been pretty reliable, amazing, in fact, at uploading all of the documents. And she's pretty reliable in terms of double checking her work when it comes to the things that she's uploading. So I do tend to trust that. However, if anyone can tell me something different, I'm willing to change my mind. But my understanding is it's a Honda Civic. Now, a Honda Civic is it can be a sedan or it can be a hatchback, is my understanding. But we've been looking at the hatchback version just because it kind of matches with what I would think of a small black car. But we can certainly look at all alternatives. So Betsy Blair can't simultaneously see a more modern looking car and an older car, and McCain's car is black. Again, that's my understanding. Whereas Betsy Blair says the car she saw wasn't black, I'm pretty sure. And of course, we've all seen the drawing. Now, my sense is she's conflated two cars. She's seen two cars. She's done 4 trips past there. So who knows if she's seen the two cars on the same trip, if she's seen cars on separate trips. But realistically, it's quite likely she's seen two cars and she's basically pulled those two cars together. Remember, Betsy Blair also goes to the library. Hey, Critter Mama, so good to see you. I was quoting you the other day, Critter Mama, about your comments about AI is only as good as the. So you were famous in one of my lives. I don't know if you watched that one, but we were talking about AI, and you made that comment a few times, which was a very sensible comment. I agree. But yeah, so Betsy Blair also drove to the library. You know, she drove around. Can anyone here remember the cars that they drove past today? I mean, I parked at my work car park. It's a small car park. And I can't think of any cars in the car park today. I think there was a red one. Sometimes I know if it's one of my colleagues' cars because I know their cars. Actually, I don't know all of them. I know one or two of them. But I can't remember cars easily. And the reason that Betsy Blair would remember the car that was a Mercury Comet, or no, sorry, Mercury Comet, was it a Ford Comet? It's a Ford Comet, would be because a Ford Comet was a car that her dad drove. Now, people's memories for cars is bad. I think that's what the research is showing. I'll double check it again, but I certainly remember reading that and putting it in my slides before. But we'll fact check. We always fact check. But your memory is going to be enhanced if it's something relevant. So I drive a Mitsubishi Outlander. I have driven an Outlander since 2016. My kids love Outlanders. We're not allowed to have any other car. They really struggled to part ways with our original Outlander in January of this year, but we got a nice new model, top of the line one that's got all the whiz features, so they love it now. But we even name our cars. We get very attached to our cars. So when I see an Outlander, I often realize that I've seen an Outlander. I'm actually really much better now at remembering cars because my little one went through the car phase big time. We have about $10,000 worth of Hot Wheels stuff that he's just no longer interested in, which is a bit sad. Now he's grown out of it, but it really got me into knowing cars that I never knew before. The things you do for love, right? Anyway, I'm really rambling, and I hope I'm not losing everybody today. I'm just sort of talking off the top of my head. So I think Betsy Blair sees two cars. She remembers a bit of each of them. It's all a bit of a blur. And I think that she sees the old car, which is super suspicious. It's parked at the absolute peak point for a lookout vehicle because it can see the Freedom Bridge, it can see the CPS entrance, which was the little gravel road, little driveway that they were encouraging people to park at instead of the Mears at that time. And it can see people driving from town to the Mears. So really good vantage point, right, for somebody who is a lookout for Bridge Guy or for whoever's over there at the north end of the bridge, at the south end of the bridge. And so I believe that's a suspicious car. That's the car that they were asking about in 2019. I don't believe it's the other little car that was only seen, from what I can gather, by witnesses between around the hours of 1 and 2. No, in fact, I think that the car seen between 1 and 2 is Rick Allen's car. And that is not some bombshell here, because I still believe that Rick Allen is innocent. I believe that he was at the trails between 1 and 2 p.m. It matches with his statements in the interviews, and it is exculpatory. And if anyone's interested in that, you can watch my past timeline videos. They're based on witness statements, but they're also based on research that kind of corroborates what people remember, what people see. And it's not such a terrible timeline. However, again, people who will detract from the things that I say because they are very stuck to their own narratives, and also because they don't like me, will tell you that I'm trying to be Nick McClelland's best friend. Which I'm not. I mean, look, I've never met Nick McClelland, and I don't appreciate some of the things that were done in this case, but I don't criticize a person, I criticize the argument. So maybe Nick McClelland's arguments are poor, and who knows, maybe he's a good best friend. I don't know. I'm probably never going to meet him, so it doesn't matter, does it really? Hi, Stephanie. Nice to see you. I've literally created a whole website to support Rick Allen. So I'm not trying to agree with the state's timeline. I'm just trying to make a timeline that fits. And my timeline is actually incredibly exculpatory, because my timeline involves Rick seeing two cars, which is what he says in his testimony. He sees two cars, a different two cars now, as he is leaving the 505 bench and walking back to his own car. Now, he talks about cars being parked at Mears, and he talks about a sedan and an SUV parked at the Mears. He says there might be people at the cars. He can't remember. However, isn't that so interesting? Because the only time that there are two cars parked at the Mears, a sedan and an SUV, is when the girls are being dropped off at 1:58 p.m. And so this would mean that Rick Allen is not Bridge Guy, because Bridge Guy is already on the bridge, according to the state's timeline. He's already on the bridge, and Betsy Blair sees him just a few minutes later. And so if Rick sees two cars as he's leaving and they're parked at the Mears lot, that means that he is not Bridge Guy. It's exculpatory. And the reason I still I'm confident about it, but I can't be 100%, is because that is a tiny, tiny little narrow period of time where there are two cars there, and that is about a minute and a half. However, I think it's still a possibility. The other issue with it is that it would mean that Betsy Blair walks in the Mears entrance and turns onto the 505 without noticing Rick sitting on the bench, and without Rick noticing her behind him. Now, again, does that feel a bit of a stretch? Sometimes it does. I'm not sure. That bench is not directly on the trail, but it's also not far enough away that it would be impossible to see someone. This is when I did all those field studies trying to figure this out. I don't know. Memory is poor. We only remember things that are salient a lot of the time in those situations. And so a man sitting on the bench looking at his phone, a woman with a Fitbit potentially listening to music or looking at her own phone or watching her steps as she's walking. Is it possible she didn't see him, but she was much more aware of the anxious or creepy looking person on the bridge? It's possible. Is it possible that Rick was so caught up in his own thoughts and his phone, in his depression, that he didn't notice someone consciously behind him? It's possible. Is it possible that Betsy Blair's footsteps subconsciously did impact him enough to go, oh, I'm going to get up and go now? I have suffered from pretty bad depression and anxiety in my life. And I can absolutely say that when I'm in one of those modes, it is almost like being in a stupor. Like you just don't really notice things going on around you, particularly when you're hooked into your phone as well. So many of us are mindless. I really suck at mindfulness because I am so stuck in my head. I often say I'm just a head and there's no body. It's just a head rolling around thinking. And if I have conceptualized Rick Allen correctly, it makes sense to me that he wouldn't have been super aware of people walking around him. He was very much in his head and not very much in his body and his senses, potentially. Okay. So I think it's quite possible that he kind of gets a bit woken up by hearing noises, whether it's Kelsey's car or the doors shutting, whether it's Betsy Blair, walking past. And it's quite possible that Betsy Blair's on her phone and she's not looking at the bench in the distance to see if there's a man dressed in sort of dark, bland clothes in a bland forest. He wouldn't stick out that obviously. Hey, USA Libertarian, good to see you. You wouldn't really go there to be around people, so avoiding people makes sense. Absolutely. And if we read some of the more recent information coming out, like Kathy Allen's interview, which we'll talk about with Ash in a couple of days' time, I think that there is a lot of indication in that marries up with some of my theories about what could be going on with Rick. And he is not a people person, not that he's a negative person towards people, but he's highly socially anxious. And I think Kathy calls him a hermit. He doesn't like being around people. So he's not looking to interact with others. He's sitting on the 505 bench in his own little world, looking at his stocks. And you wouldn't then particularly notice people walking around you. Other than the girls. Now, how do I explain the girls? I explain the girls as he says he walks into the girls coming off the trail, heading back towards where the cars are parked. The only place he says cars are parked is the Mears. So to me, that means he sees the girls on the 501 or coming off the 505. He doesn't see the girls headed towards Freedom Bridge because otherwise he would say that. So this is not the same man that the girls see later who they describe as creepy. Okay. I think the reason the girls don't remember him and the reason he only remembers 3 of the 4 girls is a very brief encounter. And who knows? I mean, Bree or one of the girls could have been way ahead taking photos of something. They could be all huddled together. There's a younger one. I mean, who knows? Who knows? And do teenage girls really look out for everyone they walk past? Bree actually says she sees 1 or 2 people as they're walking back from the bridge. Who are those 1 or 2 people? Couldn't one of them be Rick Allen? Because she's talking about 1 or 2 people, I think, in addition to Bridge Guy, or at least one person, because she didn't say she saw 2 Bridge Guys, right? I'm just going to have a drink. Just let me pause for a sec. Okay. So what's Scott saying? I'm not sure about that. It's possible he just didn't notice the younger one of the 4. Yeah, totally possible, right? It's not that impossible. And me saying that he saw those girls doesn't mean I'm saying he's Bridge Guy, because my sense when you listen to what he says in that interview, and I am going to do a video where we just listen to the interview step by step, he says, I walked towards some girls. They were coming off the trails, headed back to where the cars are parked. Now, that means he's going to be walking the opposite direction to them, and they're walking towards the Mears. So he has to be walking towards the Monon High Bridge at that point. So he cannot walk in to girls headed towards the Mears unless they are on the 501 or at the trail split or the 505 coming up towards the trail split. He can't be walking past anyone at the benches or at Freedom Bridge, because otherwise they wouldn't be walking off the trails back to where the cars are parked. Well, Scott, I agree that would be a possibility. So Scott's saying, and where the cars parked could mean where he parked his car, but he actually says there were no cars parked where he was parked. He said there were no cars parked where he parked, or he would have remembered them. The only cars he ever mentions is cars at the Mears. And so I know I'm being very literal, but I think Rick Allen is very literal. He absolutely tells the exact same story over time. There isn't a huge lot of difference between what he says and the detail he gives in 2022 is a lot, right? And to me, he's quite pedantic. He double checks himself, he triple checks himself, he's verbose. And to me, this is one of the reasons that I started to theorize about his neurotype, I suppose. And again, I'm not diagnosing. I always mention that I have not met Rick Allen. I am only speculating based on the publicly available information. But if I were assessing Rick, I would be looking at neurodivergence. And I'm going to talk about this more with Ash on the weekend. We're going to see what she says. I've deliberately not tainted her opinion by telling her what I think. And I'm going to let her think for herself. She will anyway. She's very much like that. But yeah, so to me, I actually think he just likes to be very specific about what he's saying and double check and triple check himself. He's a man that has a history of doubting himself, doubting his abilities. And I wonder, I'd be so curious. I'd love to talk to Kathy or talk to him, because it would be so useful to get even more information, to gather a better picture of who he is. But of course, I'm not going to get to do that, right? Because that's not my role here. But shout out to Rick, to Kathy, to Andy. If they ever wanted me to, I would do it. I'm probably a bit too close to the case now doing all of this YouTube stuff. But gosh, I would do a full psychological assessment for Rick Allen, free of charge, pro bono, to support this case, because I would, yeah, I'd be willing to do that. I absolutely would. And I think I've said from very early on that I saw indications in Rick that reminded me a lot of many of the clients that I see, as well as myself. And the primary presentation that I specialize in is OCD, ADHD, ASD. So those are usually the kind of areas where, I mean, obviously I see lots of people with depression and generalized anxiety and social anxiety and relationship issues. I work across the board, but my specialty area is OCD and neurodivergence in general. So OCD fits under that umbrella. I see a lot of gifted people, gifted kids, gifted adults, autistic people, and people with ADHD. And interestingly, I have a subset of people who are literally the mirror image of me, and that is OCD, ADHD, usually some secondary depression, and often highly empathic, like emotionally gifted, sometimes intellectually gifted as well. And I can tell you that those are the clients like myself who constantly doubt themselves, who will tell on themselves. I mean, you guys probably catch it on the channel. I correct myself over and over again, and I confess if I made a mistake, and I feel so bad when I made a mistake, because I hate to think that I ever am doing the wrong thing, you know, and I put the wrong thing in kind of quotations. I remember really early on in my life, well, not early on in my life, but I remember throughout my life, my mum has said to me, you use such extreme words. So I would say things like, I know I'm evil, I'm bad. And she'd be like, that's a really extreme word. Like you're not evil or bad. You just got cranky at someone. But I absolutely, hey, RC991, nice to see you. Oh, I feel like I'm like settling in now, everyone. Ignore the first 20 minutes or so, because I was like feeling a bit nervous and anxious because it's just been a big day. But yeah, so I am a neurodivergent person. I have a diagnosis of OCD that was diagnosed as a teenager. I have ADHD that was diagnosed at the age of 31, and that's because it was missed, because I'm high masking with my ADHD, and I am also gifted. And so what we know is when you have that combination, sometimes it's hard to actually identify earlier in life because of the asynchronous development. So, on the one hand, being able to have an amazing long-term memory and the capacity to synthesize information, but on the other hand, being really disorganized and having a terrible short-term memory, they kind of cancel themselves out. And to be honest, the only reason that I even recognized the giftedness was because of, initially it was kind of labeled by my own psychologist about, gosh, over 10 years ago now. And I didn't really think much of it. I thought, yeah, okay, I'm smart and that's good. But it was because I actually started to look into my own children and their neurodivergence, and being a psychologist was really kind of into this and wanted to have my oldest son assessed, and worked out that like mother like son essentially, and so it really helped me to understand my neurotype better as well. And then I realized why I was consistently attracting a particular clientele. I would just over and over again get people with ADHD, people who were highly sensitive and gifted, hyper empathic. We'd just be drawn to each other. Oh, Kelly, you're an ADHD too. Yeah, well, look, 22 is pretty late too to be diagnosed. So you probably were high masking too. A lot of us are, because particularly women with ADHD, a lot of the time we are identified later. Girls, it often looks different, but potentially because of socialization, potentially because of, more biological issues. I'm not sure. But yeah, for me, it was 31. Critter Mama says, okay, let's focus. That's not my strong point, Critter Mama. Sorry, we're getting off track, and I'm talking about OCD and ADHD. I love talking about neurodivergence, as you all know, and I think it just explains a lot about me. I think if you understand my profile, you understand why I sometimes maybe come across a bit different. But that's the reasoning. Okay, let's get back. What were we even talking about? I've totally lost my track. Thank you, Critter Mummy. You brought us back on track. Let's get back to the Hoosier Harvestore. This is just a lovely chat session today. I think it was just to simmer back down and kind of get back into the vibe of the channel after a bit of a tumultuous day for any of you who were here earlier today when we were talking about this stuff. Anyway, okay, I think Critter Mama is doing a good job of keeping me on track because it's 11:15. And I have to work at 9:00 tomorrow. I've got a full therapy day, so let's get back to the topic. Kelly, do a lot of ex-military have OCD? I'm not sure. I can look into it. Interestingly, as well, big difference between OCD and OCPD as well. So we really sometimes have to look at the differentiating factors. And I won't go into that too much now because I will totally be sidetracked. Hey, Forpit, nice to see you. Forpit, you were here earlier. Apologies for the live earlier today. It wasn't the most ideal on our channel, but we're getting back on track now. Yeah. Okay. So, back to Hoosier Harvestore. So, I think Betsy Blair saw two cars that day, but regardless, she's talking about David McCain's car, and David McCain's car, from my understanding, is a black, I was going to say black Ford Focus because I'm getting confused now. It's a black Honda Civic, as far as I'm aware. And nobody has said otherwise yet, so we'll keep going with that. So this is a Honda Civic. This is an early 2000s model. We're guessing the model because we don't know. My sense is that David McCain is in his 70s, and this is just anecdotal. I'm not at all suggesting I've researched this, but I think a lot of older people tend to keep their cars for longer, right? I mean, even I did. I just told you I got a new Outlander this year. I had a 2016 model that I'd had since 2018. I think, yes, I got it when I was just about to have my second child. So we had that for 6.5 years. So a lot of people keep their cars for a long time. So in early 2000s, Honda Civic wouldn't be an unusual car for an older person to drive. And this is what it would look like. So you can see that looks quite similar to a Ford Focus, which is this. This is Rick Allen's car. So similar overall in shape, but there are differences. And when we put them together, we can see them. So this is Scott's enhanced image that he's given us graciously, and we can see a little bit more detail in this image, and we're trying to compare this to these. Now that's tricky as well. The angle is slightly different, of course, as well, so that's tricky. This here is what ChatGPT did to try and give me an outline of the vehicle as well, just a rough outline. And main thing from this is you can see the headlight, it's suggesting that. And I think Yellow Jacket did something very similar on X. She also noted that this car just doesn't appear to have this sort of a shape of headlight. Okay, headlight, is that called the headlight? No, I don't know. Is it? I can't remember because it's at the back of the car. Is it called a headlight? Someone's gonna have to let me. Brake light, right? Okay. Anyway, so you can see these two cars don't look super different, but there are differences. This is a 4-door. This is a 2-door. This one has a third window. Tail light. Thank you, Critter Mama. Gosh, I really needed Critter Mama in here today. Critter Mama, you are the star of the show today. Thank you for being in here. I need you to save me. So yeah, that's a major difference. So the tail light, we've got the 4-door versus the 2-door. We've got the third window here. We don't have it there. This window extends in a different way. We've got a slightly bulkier, I'm not going to get the words for the cars right, but bulkier front part. This is a thinner front part. We've got this juts out a bit more. This one's a little bit smaller, whatever we call this thing. Cars are not my thing. Did you guess? I actually, like I said, I'm better at cars after having a son that was car mad. However, he doesn't talk about the parts of the car. He was just interested in, getting more of them and spending all my money, essentially. Yes, different wheels, 100%. Kelly. Critter Mama, is the front of the car doghouse. Is that what they call it? There you go. Yeah, and I mean, these are the headlights, right? The headlights are different as well. Problem is, how do you see any of that on this, right? This, and I always think of how Rick refers to this when he's asked about it in that first interview. He's like, how can anyone know that was their car from this? And I agree. I mean, we've got the enhanced image that Scott's given us, but it's ridiculous. I mean, this is the original image. Can you identify the car from that? But apparently Steve Mullins can. He can identify the car from that. He knows, and he doesn't need to ask anybody else. He can just label that as Richard Allen's car and be done with it. We're done. It's done and dusted. This is Richard Allen's car. Anybody in the chat that would say with certainty that this is Richard Allen's car? Does it convince anybody in the chat? Let's see. If it convinces you, put a thumbs up in the chat. No thumbs up? I'll give you a bit more time. Now up here, this is a Subaru Impreza, which has been the other car that people have suggested this is. Now my issue here is, and we've talked about this before, is that people on both sides of the equation go so hard into their theories and they say, no, don't be silly, that's definitely a Subaru Impreza. Or they go, no, don't be silly, that's definitely a Ford Focus. And I sit with you, Scott. It's hard to know, isn't it? I couldn't say with any certainty if it was any of these three cars. Now, obviously, we've got different colors here, but these would all be dark cars, essentially, that we'd be comparing. So this is not the fairest of comparisons. But we know that if it is David McCain's car, it's a dark car, right? So it could easily match. Now, why am I suggesting it could be David McCain's car? Not because I think David McCain is bridge guy. I do not believe he is bridge guy. I don't believe he's a suspicious figure in this case. But because nobody seemed to care about this car until 2022. So much so that they clearly didn't have a picture of this car that they were looking at, because Mullins says himself he has to go back to the video to look at it, right? And Anarch makes a great point too. A red car could appear grey because of the edge of the camera. That camera is not a great camera. We can all agree on that, right? At least not the pictures that we've seen come from it, and certainly not the pictures of this suspect vehicle. So clearly this car was not a big deal to the case, and this is what I was saying earlier this morning. I'm not saying this isn't a big deal. I wouldn't be making a whole video on the Hoosier Harvestore if I didn't think it was a big deal. What I'm saying is that this car was not a big deal in the investigation in the early days because they never made an appeal about this car, never once. Nobody talked about this car, right? And yet suddenly it's a smoking gun. Now, interestingly, though, did you notice they kind of downplayed it at trial? They didn't bring out their witnesses who said they'd seen this black car. They didn't make a big deal of it, and I wonder why. Why would they not want to make a big deal of this? Hey TJ, what you're saying you're looking at the newly and you really got the car is David McCain's. Yeah, are you talking about this one, the narrative that they're talking about? Might be that. Yeah. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, I still don't have confirmation of David McCain's car though. That's the only thing. So I think that this is David McCain's, like the type of model David McCain drove. So the reason I don't think it's suspicious for David McCain to be driving this car on the road at that time is because David McCain, I believe, from my understanding of his address, which was in some of the documents, it wouldn't be unusual for him to drive on that back road, right? Whether he's going to the trails or the cemetery or perhaps even anywhere else, he is somebody who we know is in the parks in general. I do not believe he then parked at the CPS and started walking around, becoming bridge guy, but it's very possible that he drove past. It's very possible that even maybe I'm totally wrong and maybe he did park at the CPS, but he didn't actually go into the trails and is a bridge guy, in my opinion. Okay, so please no one think that I'm saying it's David McCain's car, therefore we've got another suspect here. I'm simply saying it's probably or quite possibly David McCain's car, and that's why police didn't care. That's why police didn't give a damn about this car until 2022 when it needed to be allegedly retrofitted to Rick Allen, right? And that's my issue with this. I can't prove that beyond a reasonable doubt, but can anyone else here prove beyond a reasonable doubt that that car is Rick's? Because most of us can't. And it doesn't make sense for it to be Rick's car because, one, why would Rick drive that way? I know people say he's trying to conceal his car, but like, if he's trying to conceal his car, then why does he park at the CPS building? Like, let's be honest, you've got to walk quite a way to get to your car if you park at the CPS building. So I don't think he was trying to conceal himself, even if he parked at the CPS building. I don't think he was driving on a back road to get there. This car was not important. It was not important to law enforcement back in 2017. So that suggests to me they knew who this car was, or they suspected at least who this car was, and they weren't worried about it. Because otherwise, wouldn't this have been front and center of a campaign? Who was the black car that drove up near the crime scene at 1:27? But no, they didn't care. So why did they not care? We can't assume that law enforcement thought this was Rick's car and were covering up for Rick. Why would they do that? That doesn't make any sense, right? And I always throw in things like that to show that that would be silly because of clearly I do not think anyone was covering up for Rick, right? So USA Libertarian saying you can't use an argument that is based on assuming guilt. Exactly. And this is the problem. So much of the guilt argument is retrofitting, right? It's finding ways to piece together a case to prove a point. And this is why we're breaking down this evidence. This piece of evidence is so important. So when I say it's not important, I don't mean it's not important now. I mean it wasn't important to law enforcement back in 2017 because I don't believe they ever thought this car was a suspect. And that's why they didn't worry about it, right? And I don't believe this car is a suspect. I believe the old car is much more problematic, as well as the car that goes into the private drive, if that video is also indeed correct with its timing. Okay, so that's the car that Betsy Blair saw. I mean, that doesn't look anything like a Honda Civic, so I don't think we can assume she's talking about the same car. I think she saw two cars, and I think she's so confused because that's what memory does, and also because this is 2019. This is over 2 years later. So how on earth is she going to remember directly, right? But it is possible she remembers that there was a car that looked like David McCain. So unless David McCain's car looks anything like this, I think she's remembering two cars. And I think that sketch is probably from 2017. Yeah. Yeah, Kelly, you're with a lot of people because a lot of people think it's this car here, the Subaru Impreza. In which case, yeah, who knows? Who knows what who that is then? But I do think they must have. Look. I guess they not must have, but I think it's quite likely that they would have known whose car it is because they just certainly weren't super concerned about it and didn't mention it. Scott, are you laughing at Critter Mama's comment about women not being good with cars? Critter Mama, look, I mean, I'm certainly not going to say I'm good with cars. However, I'm better because of my son, or I was. I probably won't be because he's now over cars. Okay, now this was the thing that got us into some hot water earlier today, the Hoosier Harvestore. Now this is footage of the Hoosier Harvestore. And I'm not doing this to prove a point that I was right, that there would be no camera on the front. I was just curious, right? Because my whole point earlier was not that, there couldn't be a camera on the front, but it was that I don't believe that the other cameras on this building were being hidden. And I think the reason I didn't believe that was because that would involve multiple sources of information or multiple sources being willing to suppress information, if that makes sense. So, if you watch my channel, that I allege that there has been some cover-ups and conspiracies in this case. I believe, the lost tip narrative, it's not even, to me, it's not even a doubt, is it? Because the story just doesn't add up. You can't say that the first time you saw this was in 2022 when the print date is 2019. So we can go over the lost tip narrative a zillion times. I already have. You're probably sick of hearing about it, along with the cold shock theory. But at the end of the day, the lost tip narrative is an example of why we don't, we don't, I don't think have to stretch to say that some issues occurred. Hey, Nicole, nice to see you. So I think here the issue that I had with the 4 cameras at the Hoosier Harvestore being another conspiracy was the FBI were the people who collected the footage from the Hoosier Harvestore. So we would then need to believe that the FBI were covering something up. We would have to believe the ISP were covering something up. And I laugh there because, we all know what many of us think about some of the main investigators in this case. But we'd also then have to believe that the people who own the Hoosier Harvestore also haven't realized that a man's being convicted based on the wrong camera as well. And that's where I find things become too much of a stretch. I don't like to get overly invested in conspiracy theories because often the simpler explanation is the true explanation. But of course, in this case, I have certainly leaned into some because the lost tip narrative isn't just an idea of a conspiracy. To me, there is obviously something wrong with that storyline, right? Anyway, so that was all I was saying this morning. I was willing to accept, though, if there are, that it's reasonable if there's 4 cameras that they might be on either side of the building, and maybe I was incorrect. And I can stop there. However, I'm just curious, right? I'm a curious person and I always want to fact check because I don't think I should agree with my own opinion without checking, nor should I agree with any other opinion. And so I went back and I looked at this video, and you guys can look this up. Actually, I will I'll tell you who the video is because I've got some screenshots from it, so I want that person to get credit. I think this person does believe that Rick is guilty, and that's fine. Everybody's allowed to believe what they want. It's the channel is Turbo Uncloaked, and Turbo Uncloaked did an amazing job of getting some footage of the Hoosier Harvestore. She was attending the trial. And so she went and walked past the Hoosier Harvestore. That's what I was saying this morning, Scott. I was saying that I thought the cameras were set up to look at the shop, the driveway, and I did believe that was the only one that was looking at the road. And I think some people in the chat also said that some of the cameras may not have been working as well. But if we look carefully, so this camera here, I believe is the one that's taken the Hoosier Harvestore footage. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's the right angle. Right, now this is the front of the building. Now this is pixelated. Now you can't see it, but I can't see any cameras there, right? And when we look at a less pixelated image of half of that front, we can't. But we can indeed see two cameras on this side. This is where the entry doors are. This is where the parking area is, where we see those stationary cars. And that makes sense that two of the cameras would be there. There's no camera there. I don't see the other side close up. But if we look at this, it looks uniform. Am I right? It doesn't look like it's got something like this hanging off. What does everybody think? I'm not trying to, I know this probably looks now like I'm trying to win an argument, and I'm not. I just was curious after our conversation earlier. So Anarch says, more often than not, the majority of cameras would be inside the store to deter theft, but sometimes they could have a camera on the rear. Yes. So I thought that my understanding would be that the cameras would be on the driveway if they're outside, because the entryway, the driveway, I know this here is probably some sort of entryway too, but I suppose the other camera gets the driveway anyway, so they wouldn't need anything more directly here. They'd be able to see it from there. I don't know. That's my sense. But obviously this is, again, a blurry photo, very similar to the car. It's pixelated, but you can't see any sort of sign of a camera on here. Can anyone? And particularly when you look at this side of it. I mean, obviously it's only one side. Anyway, look, it's not a moot point. I'm happy, again, to be wrong about this, but I will not on this channel lean into too many conspiracies, because I believe if we say everything is tampered with, everything's a conspiracy, everybody doesn't know what they're doing in their job, I think that becomes, I just think it sounds, I become incredulous, and it makes me not be curious about a theory anymore, right? Because I just go, oh, that doesn't sound right, so I'll just ignore it altogether. So I always have a commitment to fact checking, and I'm not ever going to lie that I do have biases, and that was what I was sharing earlier today. Sometimes I have biases towards, what I want the evidence to show, and sometimes I have biases towards points that are raised that I don't agree with, or anyway. We talked about that earlier. I don't think this is a bias here, though, because that I want to find anything that helps to support Rick Allen. So I would want to see if there was some dodgy stuff going on, but I don't see it. And this is the exact same thing that we've run into with the Knowledge C data. I looked at that Knowledge C data, the Bridge Guy video, and wanted to believe that there was something seriously wrong with it, because that could be this slam dunk evidence that could support Rick. But I didn't see it. And I will only ever report or discuss what I do see. And that's why, again, I wasn't leaning into this idea that there are 3 other cameras they've chosen not to give footage for. Mostly as well, because I really can't see how the FBI, as well as whoever owns the Hoosier Harvestore, didn't notice that they've used the worst possible photos to convict Rick Allen. I mean, maybe none of them are watching the trial or aware of it, but I think that's a big gamble. And I kind of think, I've always said this, in this case, if there are a core group of people, and I don't believe it's the whole of the investigation, I don't believe that it's everybody in ISP or Carroll County law enforcement. I believe, and again, speculating, alleging, that it's a core group, and they are the people who are involved, I suppose, in retrofitting a case against Rick Allen for whatever reason. I don't believe that it is Bunner, Cecil, and I'm trying to think of all the other names, Jean Carl, whatever, all of the other people who testified. I don't believe every single person there is trying to make up things or, is in on some big conspiracy against Rick Allen. What I do wonder is, and again, purely speculation, that there could be a small group of names that tend to come up over and over again when we're looking at the things that don't add up. Okay. And this is why I keep bringing up the case of Daniel Morecambe, and Scott would probably know this case well, being another fellow Aussie and also being in his state. That case involved a couple of detectives who found the true perpetrator in the first 2 weeks and were ignored. And when it was found out, the other, the lead investigator who had ignored those people was found to potentially, I actually think that this was found at the commission, I'll have to look into it, but from what my understanding, to have, presented evidence that suggested they never had all that information, but the detectives actually pulled up the stuff and said, well, this is what we gave you, and you did make errors. So I'm not averse to believing that a small faction of people would cover up things, but I am averse to thinking that this is a multi-agency conspiracy. Okay, because I find that hard to believe. Because it's a small town in Indiana. We're not talking about a conspiracy about some government figure. So I lean into the cover up angle of conspiracy and even into, is there some bigger picture reason for this? But I don't lean into every single person is in on this, because realistically as well, if every single person's in on this, the weakest link is going to crack, and it hasn't happened, right? So I don't think that, to me, that doesn't sound credible. And I'm not going to tell you that every piece of evidence looks suspicious, because that doesn't sound credible to me. And I don't know that other people would see it that way either. And that is us then just retrofitting a story against law enforcement and the investigation. And we don't need to do that, because they've already made enough obvious errors, right? We don't need to find any more. There are plenty already. I'm laughing there because, just remembering we recorded over the first 70 days of interviews, and, we lost tips, and, there's plenty of errors already in whoopsie moments. We don't need to create too many more, do we, really? I'm just going back because I missed a few things in the chat, and I can see them come up and then I read them while I'm on my monologue. So USA Libertarian says, I'll try to catch myself and make fewer tangent comments, but here's the last one. To me, it's not conspiracy theorizing, it's just a hierarchy of credibility. If they have a strong incentive and info is not verified by multiple agreeing facts or witnesses, it goes to the bottom of the credibility hierarchy. Absolutely. Yeah. Anak saying, in my old job, I had to concentrate on multiple cameras from more angles, and they were newer than the system shown here. And Kelly says that's how he met. So, lovely. There you go. And so, Anak, what do you think in terms of these cameras? Like what's your sense? And if you think about the images of the suspect vehicle versus the others, have you had a look at them and kind of seen whether you think there's some oddities there? I'd be really curious to hear your point of view. USA Libertarian says, in this case, the conspiracy is they had to close the case with a conviction. They found a target, so everything that the case hinged on got decided in that direction. It's very mundane. Yes, Anarch, of course, honest opinion. We're all about honesty here. I'm just making you guys' comments a little bit larger. USA Libertarian. I think, that I think most of us could lean into, for sure. And whether there's something slightly bigger than that, I don't know. I mean, it feels as though there are some individuals who have been potentially protected in this case, and that I kind of query around why it is. But again, I think it could be, again, more simple conclusions, like, it were people close to the case allied with people who may have been involved in this crime. Is it as simple as that? Is it a bigger thing? I know, I've had ideas around, is there more organized crime and things involved potentially? But yeah, to me, the simplest thing is they needed to get a conviction ASAP, and maybe some people were shielded as well. So we're waiting for Anak's opinion as well. I'm just having a look to see in the chat. Well, I'm going to wait for your opinion, Anak, when it comes up, and we'll definitely discuss it. We are always all about honesty, definitely, and different people's perspectives, as long as you don't give an opinion that's based on electromagnetic. What was it, Scott? EMF. Because I won't understand that, so I don't want to hear that. Only joking. And what was the other one? HSP, HPS. I'm an HSP, highly sensitive person. I loved when Diana the other day, she was like, I know PMS. And we're like, not that PMS. And I know HSP, not that HSP. I think it was HPS. EMF, PMSM. I mean, that does sound like it should be some sort of psychology acronym. You know what we're going to do? Well, I've already told Ash about this, but I was going to say we could have pranked Ash, put that up and said, Ash, what's this about? That would have been fun. But Ash is super smart. Like, literally, probably would figure it out. She reads, like, physics in her free time. Like, so she's there with you, Scott. You and Ash are similar. Okay, so let's put up Anak's comment, because Anak's got some experience around this. They're outdated, not really all that good. Therefore, the lack of clarity in the video or indeed stills, those cameras only have an effective range of 60 feet before you lose clarity and visibility. Yeah, I mean, they're terrible cameras. You can tell that. I mean, because they weren't designed for this, right? That's the whole point. Like, they're not meant to be, being used for forensic examination. Although if you are Steve Mullen, you can figure out what car it is just by looking at it, apparently. So, sorry, can't help my snark sometimes with some of the investigation. USA Libertarian saying something similar, I guess, about the quality as well. Yeah, so all similar. Critter Mama is saying everyone has the right to privacy, not only in their life, but the property they pay for. It's actually a constitutional right, so I get the secrecy. Yeah. And USA Libertarian says night vision was terrible, 10 feet at most. And Anak says, I've worked with better. Yeah, so it's all good. I think, look, I think that the main issue I have with the photos, a couple of issues, if we really summarize it. Issue number one, why didn't they show the video? Issue number two, who extracted those photos? I think I can already answer it. I was going to say Scott. Sorry, Scott. I was about to talk to you about your comment. You're not Mullins. Sorry, I won't call you Mullen. Steve, Scott, same diff, right? So Mullins most likely did, which brings to me issues with due process, because I'm pretty sure the stipulation is around the FBI obtained and verified, not stills produced by. I was going to say Scott again. Sorry, Scott. Are you related to Steve Mullen? Sorry, I shouldn't be saying that. That's not very nice. Hey, Chester. Yes, how can you convict a man with no direct evidence? I agree. Of course, we've got ridiculous direct evidence. Sorry, Scott. Sorry. I shouldn't be making you related to anyone in the case. Apologies. I'm being silly. Chester says, yes. I mean, the problem is that they think direct evidence is toolmark, and toolmark is fine if you're comparing like with like, not like with unlike, and that's what they did in this case. USA Libertarian, they kept them intact for 6 or 7 years. It's a little dubious to me considering how much they lost. Yeah. So my issues with the Hoosier Harvestore is 1, no video. 2, who extracted the stills, and are they actually technically then considered the FBI verified? Because I don't think they are. 3, why is the quality of the photos of suspect vehicle so much poorer quality than the one of Kelsey German's car and Sarah Carver and Betsy Blair? So those are probably the main issues. 4, I don't believe they should have labelled it as Richard Allen's car based on Mullen saying that it's Richard Allen's car. I don't think that's fair at all. And 5, why did they not care about this car in 2017? Why did it only become an issue once they decided that they'd set their sights on Rick Allen? So those are my kind of 5 main takeaway points from Hoosier Harvestore, and why I think it is certainly an area that needs to be explored further. I would love it if they got a digital forensic expert to look at the metadata, to look at the actual video, to compare the car in the video rather than the stills. I think all of that would be interesting. I think most of us would love to see the video. I wish that video was given to us as an exhibit, because I think the video would, whilst still be probably grainy and difficult to see, give us a little bit more to look at. And I would really think that a digital expert should be looking at the metadata of those stills and the video, and, you know, lining it up and seeing whether there was some obscuring. Now, the thing is, so going back to a point I didn't finish earlier, and I think this is also something Scott was saying, you know, the clock can be right twice in a day. Well, I think as well, if we take a little bit more of a suspicious mindset on this, if they were indeed fuzzying up the photo so that it was harder to identify, then to me, there's plausible deniability there. They could say, oh, we didn't realize that. It's not obvious tampering. It's not something that they could technically get in trouble for. They would just go, it'd be another oops moment. And I think if there's another oops moment, you know, we already know multiple oopses don't seem to matter when it comes to this case. And so, yeah, I think that angle works, doesn't it? Like the tool mark analysis. Okay, Scott, what are you saying here? The video wouldn't be any good other than to extract all the frames and see if there's better pics. Exactly. That's what I mean. That's what I'd love them to do, because I don't think that these are the best frames, because I think there are better frames of other vehicles other than this vehicle, and I think we need to know why. Yellow Jacket furthered this point when she actually put side by side those vehicles in the front and compared them, and they do not look as good quality in the Rick Allen ones as they do in the other car ones. So, yeah. Yeah, USA Libertarian, 100%. That's what I would say as well. So seen in other trials where they cherry pick the video quality to push the narrative, for sure. And Anarch saying all non-sus vehicles are clear, but Rick's car is blurry. Suggests a ghost photo, meaning the disk or storage for CCTV has been tampered with multiple films. Yeah, and so that's my concern. Why is the clarity different? Oh, Queen of Swords, lovely to see you. Oh, did you have a look at that footage? That was the one I was looking for, and I found this other one. Did you see anything? I'm curious. I was going back to look and to see, but I just I didn't have a lot of time, so I just came across one video and took these still shots. But I'm curious to see from other news footage or other footage of the Hoosier Harvester if anyone else saw anything differently. There's definitely the two over here, but yeah. So there is a front facing. Do you know whereabouts on this area? Like I guess around, like, roughly? Yeah, the original BG stills. Yeah, I mean, they definitely look unusual quality, don't they, as well? I don't know. It's hard for me. I mean, that video, it's so hard to see BG in the video, isn't it? So frustrating, the BG video, because I feel that Libby took that with such bravery, and yet we can't use it for anything. And that's not her fault at all. She did such a brave thing, and I just so wish we could have used it. It's really, really upsetting. Just above the front garage door in the top left corner. So up here. Okay, let's go to the one that's a bit closer up. Give me a sec. Oh, okay. We can't actually see that from this angle. Oh, that's so annoying. Okay. So maybe around here. I wonder though, would that camera be, again, what angle is it facing? That's my question here too. Because I wonder if it would just be looking at the driveway rather than the entire road. I still believe that. Let's see. Let's go back to Google Earth again. I lost that. But that was my main sense around this, rather than, like I said, I just, like, if there is, and there is, that's fine. Like, it's not that we don't want to understand that there is one there, but it's more, I think what I was getting at was that I thought that the FBI were the ones that got this, and the store itself would also know. That's why I was a bit more reticent to to believe that there's footage that we're not seeing, just because of the fact that there'd be multiple people then who were aware of that footage but didn't say, if that makes sense. Oh, now I've lost. Where am I going? Here. There we go. That's the Hoosier Harvestore, isn't it? Is that the Hoosier Harvestore there? Yeah. Okay. So, yeah, I mean, that was my only query, is that catching there? I know this one is, but is this one pointed more down because that's a garage? I don't know. I don't actually know. We'll have to think about it. So tricky, isn't it? So many different opinions, aren't there? I was just looking at Critter Mama talking about Odinus. Yeah, I know some people are more sold on it than others. I've been in between. I think the thing that always got me was that there was more of a link between some people and the girls than others. And I think that was where... Yeah, you look, Queen of Swords, that could be right, because this one here, the pictures that I've got here are from 2022. Oh, no, not 2022, sorry, 2024, because this is a person who was walking around the Hoosier Harvestore at the time of the trial. So it could be the business has changed hands since then. We were talking about earlier, I think it's called U-Store now as well. So I think maybe that's also something that accounts for the difference. Maybe the camera is no longer there because it's a different business now as well. So thank you for updating us on that, though, Queen of Swords. Like I said, I honestly, it's not a hill that I need to die on around the cameras situation, and things just got a little bit emotional earlier today, more so for other reasons than that. I think sometimes the pressure of this really gets to you, and I mean, I think it's because of all of the chaos and drama that goes on around this case. And I think there's only so many times you can get attacked by people in general before your nervous system's just like frazzled. And I think that's happened to a lot of people who have talked about this case, whether they've gone, and made channels and done it publicly, or whether they're in the chat. There's a lot of dismissiveness and cruelty and mockery, and it's super upsetting. And I think for me, my nervous system just had been taking it for so long that I just feel like, yeah, if particularly, I think if I feel like there are people who know me and they're not understanding me, that feels even worse than when it's people who don't know me and are invested in finding something wrong with what I'm saying. I was saying earlier, I don't actually have a whole issue with the people who I guess are the Rick Allen is guilty trolls. I mean, they banned me from the Delphi trial group and things like that, but they don't actually ever really target me. I've only had one or two times where people have, got into a bit of a debate on Twitter, and it's usually not that big a deal, to be honest. But I wonder if that's because they know they don't need to, because I'm so hated within a lot of the Free Rick Allen camp, and I still don't understand it. I don't really know why. I think anyone who knows me or gets to know me can see that I have a good heart, and I'm not in this for anything other than Rick and the girls, because I literally feel like crying for them. I think most of you have heard me when I talk about them. This is actually coming from a place of love, not a place of certainly not monetary. I'm spending a lot of hours on this that I could be doing other things. Do I like getting validation? Of course I do. Who wouldn't? You know? Oh, thank you, Queen of Swords. I love you too. That's lovely of you to say. I'm really lucky. There are some people who are so, so supportive, and you're one of them, of course, Queen of Swords. A lot of the people in the chat here, Scott, you've been very supportive. I'm so lucky to have Dee Dee, Diana. She is such an angel, such a beautiful person. But like I can't even list you all. But yeah, Adrienne has been a super, super amazing emotional support to me. She's just, I believe, just a pure empath, very, very kind soul. And Prof has been as well really kind to me. I know that people have had issues with different creators that and they have their own issues with that, and I totally understand that, but they're all people that have actually been incredibly supportive of me throughout my time dealing with a lot of horrendous bullying. And I actually don't think, as a psychologist, it would be right not to call out the fact that bullying is occurring and cruelty is occurring, because a psychologist isn't about being quiet and demure. It's about being compassionate and caring, but part of that is setting boundaries and being honest about your feelings. And so I'll continue to do that, even if it's annoying for some people, because I think the right people will come to my channel because that's what they value. They value emotional intelligence as well as critical thinking. And that's how I will always be. I will only call out things that are wrong and absurd, and I will only argue with an argument and a behavior, not about people's personalities, and not for no reason at all, just to say you're wrong because I don't like you. It'll be, I think you're not correct because the evidence doesn't support what you're saying, or I don't like your behavior because I find it cruel. And please let me know if you ever hear anything differently from me, because we are all human and we make errors. And I definitely know that when my emotions get high at times, I do struggle to just step back and say this isn't productive. And I think that's the voice of someone who's been chronically invalidated and unheard. And so, yeah. Anyway, I always get back to psychology because that's my favorite thing to talk about. As much as I love Delphi, I love psychology more, and I love cats even more than that. So cats, Delphi, psychology, true crime, those are all my favorite things to talk about. And I can't wait till Rick gets out of jail and I can actually stop talking about Delphi and do the channel that I really want to do, which is all about compassion and about understanding ourselves, about our shadow parts, about, gosh, just so much psychology stuff. And I really, sometimes, today was a day where I felt like just closing this down and doing that. But then I remembered I've come this far and I can't walk away, because now I see that picture of Rick in my head, of the bruised, battered face of a man who has struggled his entire life and I don't believe did this. And I see the face of Libby, who believed in justice and fairness. And I see the face of Abby, who was a gentle, kind soul. Those girls and that man deserve justice. And I know there are plenty of other people fighting the good fight, but I know that I have things that I can add to it. I know that there are things that we've worked on here together as a community that are novel, in a way that could help Rick and could help the girls get justice. And I don't think that's bragging to say that. I think that this is the channel where we have uncovered things, the lost tip, understanding what's going on with that knowledge C data, and I stand by my interpretations of that as highly plausible. And even this Hoosier Harvestore stuff, we're looking at angles that haven't been looked at. And I also think that the very first thing that pulled me to this case, being a psychologist, a clinical psychologist with 15 plus years of experience, and again, I know that I am a very skilled clinician with an expertise in neurodivergence, and that lens was not put into this case. I may be incorrect because I have not met Rick Allen and I have not done all of the research into him specifically because I don't have access to it. But I believe that man deserves somebody to look at his psychological profile and at least explore the angle of neurodivergence. Because, spoiler alert, I guess, for the video that we're going to do with Ash in a couple of days' time, everything that I hear about Rick Allen continues to support my hypothesis around neurodivergence. And I'm here not simply to support and advocate for Rick, but I'm here also to advocate for neurodivergent people everywhere who are living a life of depression and anxiety, because this society that is largely neurotypical does not understand us. And that's my problem here. That is the problem that I keep coming across, and none of you guys in the chat are, a part of that. Please don't think you are. I know I'm lecturing to you guys, but you're the only ones that listen to me. But I think it's very clear when you hear me speak, when you get to know me, that I have a really good heart and I'm also neurodivergent. I have multiple layers of neurodivergence. I'm super proud of that. But being so much of a minority is so difficult in this world, in a world that values sameness. And look, the majority of the world are neurotypical. And goodness me, that would be a much easier life because human beings like other human beings that are like them. I mean, I think that's a fact. However, I'm not neurotypical. I never have been. I never will be. And I think it's about time that the world understands that being neurodivergent doesn't just mean that we need a few extra special provisions here or there. And certainly some people who are neurodivergent do, but there are also people like myself who basically go through life trying to be like everybody else. And then when we try to show the unique qualities that we have that are actually valuable and useful, everybody just tells us we're wrong. And it's not just people like myself, it's all neurodivergent people. We deserve to have a world that accommodates for the things that we struggle with, but we also deserve to be seen for the strengths that we have. And neurodivergent people have a lot of strengths. We don't need to always look at it as a deficit model, which is what it's been looked at for so long. It's seen as like it's a deficit, it's a problem, it's something that's a diagnosis. Well, actually, it's not. The only reason we have to keep it in the diagnostic category is because of two things. One, because the world won't accommodate to it. And two, because the world won't accommodate to it, we spend our lives masking and suffering and struggling, and therefore we do end up with secondary depression and anxiety. And I'm only speculating here, I'm not diagnosing, but I believe Rick Allen is one of those people. And I believe Rick Allen has a profile that is highly consistent with those types of traits, and he's misunderstood and he's struggled his life, prior to this because of that, and now he's struggling again because of this. So things that other people might find odd about him, guess what? I don't find odd, because I believe, if I'm right about what I see in Richard Allen, that he's one of my people. I believe that he presents as someone who's highly empathic, sensitive, somebody who has a high level of integrity and conscience, somebody who doesn't want people to hurt, somebody who finds the world hurtful. And I don't believe that any of that speaks to a man who has brutally murdered 2 girls. And I also believe that Libby, being so highly intelligent and intuitive enough to record that Bridge Guy video, she may also be neurodivergent. And again, I'm speculating. I'm not diagnosing her. I never met her, but clearly she was an incredibly intelligent person. And just for the record, highly sensitive, highly empathic, and highly intelligent people are neurodivergent too. Neurodivergent means that our nervous system and our brain is wired differently. And so we are neurodivergent for lots of different reasons. Anyway, I know I'm monologuing. You guys are like, we came here for Delphi, not Neurodivergent 101. But it's important. I speak for all neurodivergent people who all deserve to be respected, to be seen, not for the deficits that we have in comparison to the average person, but to be accommodated as much as possible by the world, but also to be valued, because every neurodivergent person has a lot of value and strengths that other people may not have. So anyway, I just need to say that. So if you're neurodivergent, and even if you're not, because it's not about being us versus them, if you care about understanding your fellow human being, even if they're not like you, then this is the place for you. This is a place for you to feel safe. So yeah, anyone who's interested more in neurodivergence, look into the double empathy problem. It's been spoken about a lot in the autistic literature or autism community, but even if you don't identify as being autistic, I think the double empathy problem is incredibly important. It's when we basically try to understand other people based on how we feel we would be. And a lot of the time, we're not even doing that. I think a lot of people are just saying, well, I don't think I would do that. And they're not even perspective taking. So, yeah. Okay, guys, sorry, I was ignoring the chat, and I just wanted to say that because, as you all know, I have big emotions and I get on my bandwagon. I really appreciate the people who came in here today. I felt really nervous coming back and doing another live after this morning, and I don't know, I got off the channel, off the live earlier today, and I was like, maybe I'm done, and I can't look away. I won't look away, because Rick Allen's well-being and justice for the girls matters too much. I'm just looking, Critter Mama, who's Skinner? I wonder who Skinner is. I don't know. So you'll have to let me know who Skinner is. Because you got to remember, for me, I literally came into Delphi more this year. I watched obviously the trial recaps and things like that, but I definitely don't have all the background. So certainly let me know. Well, that's what I was thinking, BF Skinner too, but no, Critter Mama's not talking about BF Skinner. Scott. I wondered if Scott had fallen asleep. You're back, Scott. So does anyone have any questions, comments, things they want to talk about when it comes to the Hoosier Harvestore? I'm not sure. This stream still feels very vulnerable, so I may actually make it private, because I just feel like I've rambled a lot. I don't know. I'm always worried. I'm always tone policing myself. But it's partly, it's not just because I know people are always looking for reasons to find fault, but it's also because I want to always act with integrity, and I don't want to put out anything that's inaccurate or not measured. And sometimes when you're on a live, it's so hard because you're just kind of thinking aloud. And I always feel kind of under pressure to make sure that I'm, representing information myself and the case accurately. And today's just been a little bit of a debrief. You can absolutely make a suggestion, USA Libertarian. Of course you can. As long as it's not, don't go on Twitter. because that reason I don't like that is because to me, that's like, well, the victim just has to avoid the bullies. And it's like, that's like saying you can't go outside because there might be, a burglar, or not a burglar, sorry, a murderer out there. And that's like, well, why is that my fault, You want me to do a live collab with the fun folks? Who are the fun folks? USA Libertarian. Who do you like? Who are the fun people? Yes, I agree totally, Anna. I'm putting your message up on the screen. Every person, neurodivergent or neurotypical, is unique and has so much that needs to be treated with respect. We all deserve to be treated with respect. I'm waiting on USA Libertarian to tell me who the fun folk are that I got to get in contact with. Who were the funnies? We have some funnies sometimes. I think we had some funnies the other night. I am still going to do a video where we laugh at my old videos because I think that would be super fun. And some of my old posts because, goodness, they were funny. Big Fish Cryptex Paradox. Don't want you to leave people out. I absolutely adore like Cryptex because I just think he's such a nice guy and he's just so genuine, like so genuine and so fair. So and Big Fish, I love Big Fish. I've definitely seen Big Fish around in my chat. And Paradox, I haven't met as much, but I've had I think I had one conversation with Paradox on Peggy's channel and found Paradox to be really, really kind and yeah, easy to chat to too. So yeah. I also, it's such a shame because in this space there are people who I really enjoy talking to and they don't want to come on video. You know who you are. Yeah, I've got a few people who I really align with in terms of like my thinking who don't want to do YouTube. But I am trying to con Ash into, I'm always saying I'm trying to con Ash, but yeah, I would love to have Ash join us a little bit more too, because Ash is my safe person in this world. When I'm with Ash, I feel very safe because Ash is, again, multiple layers of neurodivergence and also the person who taught me a lot about neurodivergence. And Ash is just someone who's good for my nervous system. So if I can bring Ash on more, I'm going to feel a lot better about doing my live shows. But it definitely helps when in the chat I have all of you guys too, because yeah, I feel, you can see I feel a lot more safe talking now. Anyway, it's 2 hours worth, everybody. Like I said, I'm not sure if I'll keep this live stream up. It was an interesting chat, and I'm glad for all the people who were in here. Also, please, anyone who's lurking, feel free to keep coming and talking to us. Like, I know, like I said, things got a little bit emotional earlier today, but I hope no one would ever feel like they would be attacked in here. I really don't want that. I do not want anyone to feel attacked in here. Okay, so just know that this is a safe place, and even when emotions run high, it's a safe place. Okay, anyway, I'm talking too much. Let's go to sleep. Oh, me go to sleep. You guys don't go to sleep. Actually, Chester and Scott, Ash, Mel, and I have done the episode where I explained some of the ethical violations that have been discussed, and I haven't edited it yet because I've been doing too many lives. So I will do that. Mel's actually going overseas, which is why we haven't got Mel on with us this time. for the next one we're going to do. And that's why we can't finish the panel either, because we've still got one episode to do. So we may have to do that closer to Christmas because Mel's away for the next few weeks and we'll probably have more time over Christmas. Ash and I are actually spending the week between Christmas and New Year together with two other friends of ours who are amazing and who didn't know much about Delphi until they met me at the conference just a month ago. And they, I'm sure, would also be interested. I'll see if I can pull them on too, because they are really cool and they actually have a podcast. And again, just really wise people who I think would be awesome additions as well to this. But they don't know Delphi. That's the only issue. Anyway, guys, I have talked for a long time. Gosh, 25 people still watching. I don't even know why you're still watching me at this point, guys. I'm just rambling. But yeah, let's finish up and I will catch you guys for a more organized and super informative live on the topic that I most like talking about, which is psychology, particularly clinical psychology and forensic psychology, with Ash in about, I was going to say 2 days, but it's not 2 days. It'll be earlier in the day. So 1.5 days. I'll see you then. In the meantime, I may post some short videos that won't be lives. Check them out just to really kind of get to the core of some of the things we've talked about without the chatter and the philosophy that I'm doing or philosophizing. So yeah, I really, really appreciate your support. Thank you for sticking with me. I honestly am truly so appreciative. And if anybody wants to reach out and have a chat one-on-one, please feel free to email me as well. daisyboo@gmail.com is the best one. I do have the Richard Allen Justice Project, but for some reason that one's not on my phone, and so I rarely check it. So if you email me there and I ignore you, please don't think you're ignored. Nobody's ignored. I'm either not checking it or I have my ADHD, and so I forget to reply, or the threads get too long, as Scott will know, and then I can't find the thread that I wanted to reply to. But no, it's not because I don't care. I love talking to all of you, and we have great chats, and I need to just end now. So good night, everybody. Thank you so much. Love and light.